Allow me to paint you guys a picture. This is going to be a Glock 43X. This is my carry gun. It holds 10. It is reliable, eats any ammunition that I throw at it. It is clear, no round in the chamber, and no magazine. So for demonstration purposes, this firearm is clear, and the rest of these have all been safety checked, all good to go. But striker fire handgun, what happens when you want a little bit more out of your firearm? Well, you can choose to upgrade it up to something maybe similar to this configuration. This is a Glock 17. I have a Harrington Arms compensator, threaded barrel from Glock, Holosun, red dot, a Surefire X300, Talon grips, and we have an Apex trigger here. You could go all out and just soup up a very, very basic striker fired handgun. This is one of my favorite guns to fire, and honestly, I have no complaints. However, what happens when you want even more out of your handguns? Well, that's when some people say going to the 1911 platform. This is going to be the Mac 1911 DS, and this is what today's video is going to be about. At what point do you go from the striker-fired handguns like Glocks or any other company's striker-fired handgun to the 1911? What are the pros? What are the cons? Let's get right into the video. What's up, everybody? My name is Josh, and this is Fledgling Tactical, here to share my journey to proficiency, as well as anything firearms related and promoting safe handling of firearms. Let's get right into today's video. So again, we're talking about simple firearms like striker-fired handguns, and the transition into something a lot more bougie, into the 1911 space. And there are a lot of benefits from upgrading it into that space. However, there are a lot of drawbacks as well. And so let's go ahead, start from the ground up. We're talking about striker-fired pistols. All right, let's go ahead, start from square one rather. Let's talk about our basics. This is a Glock 43X, like I had mentioned earlier. This is going to be my gold standard in terms of basis of knowledge for handguns. This is going to be one of the most reliable handguns I've ever used and utilized, and that is why I rely on it for my concealed carry. This firearm is simple. All you need to do, this firearm is empty, no magazine, no round in the chamber, but all you need to do to make this firearm function is going to be insert a magazine, which I will not be for this demonstration, rack the slide from the front or the rear, and from there, engage the trigger safety, which is right here, depress the trigger safety, pull to the wall, pull past the wall, and if there were a bullet in the firearm, it would have fired. So again, really simple to function, really simple to use, and taking them apart is equally as simple. YouTube does not like when people take apart firearms on their channel, so I'm going to go ahead and just tell you that the process to do so is a lot simpler than most other firearms. These are wonderful guns for starters. They're really good to get started learning and picking up and using, practicing, learning the fundamentals of firearms. But there are a lot of little nuanced details that could be improved upon. That brings me over to my Glock 17, which is a firearm that has been altered pretty heavily. We have the compensator to mitigate some of that recoil, the threaded barrel from Glock that allows me to put the compensator on. We have a Holosun red dot and metal night sights. These upgrades are kind of things that people are kind of like quality of life improvements that when you start to get a feel for your firearms and want certain upgrades in certain areas, then you can add them to your Glocks. I think that they're quite modular, so that's what I really like about Glocks. They're very standardized and very modular. So, and you go ahead and throw on a pair of Talon grips because Glock frames can be pretty slippery. Apex trigger to improve on that trigger pull and improve anything on this gun. It is really easy. I really enjoy Glocks, but you don't have to like Glocks. You can go any other company's striker fire pistol, and there are a lot of really great ones. CZ makes a really, really good striker fire pistol, and then there's Smith & Wesson that makes a ton of wonderful striker fire pistols. A lot of people say the Ruger RXM is the Glock killer. A lot of upgrades on that firearm that Glock probably should pick up on and modernize. But as a upgraded Glock, I think this fires beautifully.
Stand by. Threat. Deal.
everybody wants to improve. Everybody wants to get better and better and better. Let's talk about 1911s now. Introducing the Mac 1911 DS. There are features on this firearm that do not exist on Glocks. First and foremost, it's a hammer-fired weapon, but just to show you, no magazine, no round in the chamber whatsoever. So this firearm is good to go, safe, and nothing's coming out of that barrel, thankfully. But the 1911 platform is one that was prevalent in the American military since 1911. Surprise, surprise. It is a very old platform. However, in the recent decades, it has been modernized into something that is an extremely refined and pretty much perfected platform in terms of handgun. Now, allow me to point out some of the differences that exist on the 1911. Like I had mentioned a little bit prior, it is a hammer-fired firearm. So this is the hammer. When you pull the trigger, this slams forward, whereas on a Glock, everything is internal. And this firearm is going to be a full-size duty pistol. I did mount a Holosun onto here, but it does have a backup iron sights that co-witness. Sorry, my window's open and it is incredibly loud out there. I have no idea what kind of car that is. But this gun is wonderful. This is what is considered to be a very budget option when it comes to 1911s, and that's going to be where I mentioned my first con. Getting into 1911s is very, very expensive, or can be. Some really high-end 1911s can run you multiple thousands of dollars. This one has an MSRP, I believe, of just over $1,000, and I was able to get this pre-owned for, I think, $650, which is, I think, a steal, because $650 is right and around like the retail price of a Glock. Getting this for $650 was a steal in my eyes. You guys let me know if you guys think so. But really, really good full-size handgun with a fiber optic front sight, and it has a polymer grip. I wish this grip were a little bit grippier. It has a included magwell, comes with TSOS magazines, 2 of them, and a case. What people really enjoy about 1911s over things like Glocks, let me actually bring out the Glock again to show you the trigger. All right, with this firearm, you see that the trigger safety is right on the trigger, and then you pull all the way to a wall, and once you push past that wall, that is when the trigger breaks. And showing you the trigger reset, I'm going to just creep forward. You can hear it. It audibly clicks. And you can just push past that wall again. That is the nature of a striker fire trigger. Let's look at the 1911 trigger. There is a tendency of 1911 triggers to be a lot lighter than striker fired handguns. So that is all the travel. You can barely see it. That is the wall, push past the wall, and it requires very, very little force. I do not have anything to measure the force of the trigger to get you actual poundage, but rest assured, it's a lot lighter than the Glock. And the reset is immediate. This trigger is very short, it's very quick, snappy, predictable. It is a wonderful shooting experience in comparison to firing a Glock. A vast majority of 1911s, because the trigger is so good, and good by good I mean it's very short, it's very light in comparison to striker fires, there are multiple safety mechanisms. Right here you can see there is a thumb safety where you push it upwards or push it down when you're ready to fire. So upwards, this slide will not move no matter how much you try. Push it downward, you're ready to fire. But not quite yet. You need a really good grip on this firearm because it also has a grip safety. If this is not engaged, this trigger will not fire. So if I just try to pull the trigger, nothing happens. Whereas if I depress the grip safety and pull the trigger, it fires. So the two main safety mechanisms are going to be the thumb safety and the grip safety. For the Mac 1911, it has an ambidextrous ambidextrous thumb safety. So there's one on this side as well as one on the other side as well. And both are very easy to operate, and they're very tactile. You can hear it, you can feel it. Another thing that I really want to compare in terms of shooting a Glock versus shooting any like 1911 platform, this is considered a budget 1911 like I had mentioned earlier. This is kind of the lower end in terms of 1911, but when you hear the gun slide, it slides like butter. It is very, very, very smooth and very light to slide the actual slide and cock the gun. Whereas on a Glock, bringing out the 14X again, it doesn't sound as smooth, it doesn't feel as smooth. It is a little rudimentary feeling in terms of how the gun feels in your hand when you operate it. If there is one piece and of the feature set of the Glocks that I think is actually superior to 1911's, that's going to be the slide release. When you are done with a magazine and your gun basically is telling you to reload, it is going to lock back like this. Well, this right here is going to be the slide release. And when you put in another magazine and go ahead and use your thumb to send that slide forward to chamber another round, it is really easy to just smack with your thumb. Where most 1911s, the slide release is going to be a little bit more forward, and some people literally have to use their support hand thumb to hit that slide release and then go back to work. Where on this Mac 1911, the slide release is really, really extended. So as you can see, this is the piece that incorporates the slide release, and it really just goes over the grip, almost touching the thumb safety. And if you just hit it, slams forward, chambers another round, you're ready to go. And that is a feature that I really only find on this Mac 1911. A lot of people say that 1911s have that inherent issue. Now, this is not going to be just a review of this gun. This Mac 1911 is a really good gun in my opinion, but it does have its gripes. So if you would like to see a review on the Mac 1911, a great budget option for a 1911, let me know in the comments down below and I'm happy to do that video. But other than that, that is kind of, I'm probably missing a couple things, but that is kind of the gist of the differences, the primary differences between shooting a striker fired pistol or a Glock versus shooting a 1911. The experience is a lot more refined. The fitment is very, very, very good in comparison to the Glock because the Glock has polymer parts, whereas this, the frame, I believe is made of aluminum. I could be wrong, but the frame itself, like this bottom portion, is also metal, and then the grip is polymer. So just by sound and feel alone, it is buttery smooth. It is really nice. And the recoil impulse is very different in comparison to a Glock. Another difference that a lot of people might miss, if you're used to shooting Glocks, shooting 1911s is a completely different angle. So if you're looking over here, this angle, then this angle right here. And that little bit of difference makes a huge difference in terms of how it feels to shoot the gun. It makes it harder to actually find your sights. So it is a matter of just getting used to the platform that you want to shoot. Now, when I talk about fitment, I'm primarily referring to how the pieces individually fit together and make this gun function. This gun is a much higher maintenance gun than shooting a Glock or any other striker fired handgun. This will require cleaning a lot more often than the Glock. So if you are someone who is willing to take care of your gun more and willing to spend simply more money, typically when we're looking at 1911 platforms, you're gonna look at maybe like $1,500 to $2,000 for your kind of like base models in terms of 1911 platforms, whereas Glocks will run you maybe like $500, $600, $700. So you're spending like double the money. So that is one thing to take into consideration, is that running 1911s is a lot more expensive, where also the different features, you have to get used to it. I had mentioned the grip angles before, but now you also have to worry about gripping it right so that you don't accidentally engage this thumb safety, or grip it right so that you make sure that this grip safety is also engaged. So you'll be gripping the firearm, and you want to make sure that your thumb kind of rests on top of the safety, and with that kind of grip, you're engaging both safety mechanisms and you are ready to shoot. Whereas the Glock, you just kind of grip it how it feels right, and the only safety mechanism exists within the trigger. So those differences are major for people who really pay attention how their gun feels. But when I was talking about fitment, I also want to talk about tolerances. This is a firearm that has very high tolerances, and tolerances is basically the factor of like how particular conditions have to be to make this gun fire reliably. If it is too dirty, this gun will not operate properly. If you use certain types of ammo, sometimes it won't run properly. Higher tolerance guns have a more refined feel, whereas lower tolerance guns will potentially run more reliably, but have a little bit more of a rudimentary shooting experience or feeling. So if we're talking practicality's sake, honestly, I would say an upgraded Glock is a wonderful shooting experience. But if you want to take it that step further, 1911 platforms are great. And if you really sink a good amount of money into it, you can make the 1911 platform feel absolutely incredible and seriously a treat to shoot. But again, for training purposes, I primarily use my Glock platforms. I am very curious as to what you guys think. Do you think it is worth it to spend the extra money to get into the 1911 platforms, or just go ahead and go with striker-fired handguns, which are significantly cheaper? And what do you guys think of high tolerances and high maintenance? Are you willing to put up with higher maintenance, more often cleaning, more often oiling? Or would you rather just have a gun that you can grab and go regardless of whether you cleaned it or not? I am very much hot and cold on that subject, and I, for the time being, really enjoy shooting striker-fired handguns and primarily Glocks. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I appreciate your guys' time, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Later.